There were never any delusions of grandeur of potentially going to the Olympics or representing a country or becoming competitive. It was just like, well, if these guys can do it, I want to do it. And that's kind of how it started.
Nestled between Calgary and Vancouver, Revelstoke, British Columbia is where the towering peaks meet the endless skies. Revelstoke is not just a ski resort. It's a playground where perfectly groomed runs and plenty of fresh powder ignite a passion for the slopes.
My name is Benjamin Alexander. I am Jamaica's first ever alpine Olympic ski racer, and I competed in the 2022 Beijing Games. After graduating from college, I moved away from the United Kingdom. I moved to Asia for a little while, ended up working in finance after graduating an electronic engineering degree. After a short while, I realized I didn't want to sit behind a desk, and so kind of revived an old hobby of mine, which was DJing, which I've now been doing on and off for 23 years. And became a full-time DJ in Hong Kong. So life as a DJ was the kind of ideal of being a rock star. It was that arriving in a country for the first time with a sign with your name, being picked up in a Mercedes-Benz or a limousine and taken to the nicest hotel in the city, and then being taken to the nicest restaurant. Then having the ability to go into this incredible nightclub where people have been waiting for your performance, your attendance, and spending an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours playing the music that you love to a bunch of people that love that similar kind of music. Seven and a half years ago, I was invited to this part of the world here in Revelstoke in British Columbia, Canada, to actually DJ at a heli ski event. That was my first real exposure of seeing my friends do this thing, and this thing just looked incredible, like something from a Marvel movie, jumping out of helicopters and skiing bottomless POW. And it was at that moment I decided that I didn't want to come back to that annual trip, which it was, as just a DJ, and I set out to learn how to ski. So my first ever ski lesson was February of 2016. It didn't go so well. First of all, I hadn't had much sleep. I was probably still drunk when I got up on the slopes. Fortunately, there's no DUI for skiing. And having a half lesson in the morning and just kind of learning the basics, afterwards I set out to try and figure it out by myself. And so I basically set about just going down the green line over and over again. And so my first time attempting the green line without the support or the guidance of an instructor, I fell 27 times. So I got back on the gondola and tried again, and the second time down I fell 24 times, which at that point most people were falling 51 times on the green line twice down would have just said, this is stupid, what are we doing here? But for me, 27 to 24 showed progress, and incremental progress has been the backbone of my entire story.
For most, just learning the basics would have been enough. But for Benjamin, he had dreams of achieving more.
So the catalyst of going from skiing to potentially trying to get to the Olympics is that I'm a person of color. I have a black father who was born in Jamaica and moved to England at the age of 5. So I'm 50% English, 50% Jamaican. Being of Jamaican descent and obviously having some attachment to the Cool Runnings legacy, the 1988 Jamaican bobsled team, people would always bring that up, you're from Jamaica, here you are skiing, you should go to the Olympics. And it really just started as casually as that, you know, a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke. I first discovered skiing when I was 32. It was the first time I saw my friends jump out of the helicopters and do this incredible thing called heli skiing. I still didn't have a body of time where I'd skied every day for multiple weeks. So I arrived here late January of 2019. I bought a ski pass. I went and bought some secondhand skis, and I was like, let me just ski every day and see what the outcome is. But what happened is, on my 4th day of being out here, I met a former Europa Cup skier by the name of Gordon Gray, who used to represent the United States. Immediately, he was a friend of a friend, part of the Send It event. Immediately, I go up to him and say, Gordon, I hear you're a former ski racer. I have these crazy ideas of maybe going to the Olympics to represent Jamaica as a ski racer. I don't know what that even means or how that happens. What do you think my chances are? And he said, well, I've just met you 10 seconds ago. Let's, we'll ski together at some point this day and I'll tell you what I see. So we skied together in the morning, and at lunchtime he says, okay, I'll tell you what I see, Benji. You have the worst ski technique that I have ever seen. He said, but what I can't understand, as someone that's skied my entire life and represented the United States at almost the highest level internationally, is how the hell you're keeping up with me. You are absolutely fearless. And he paused and said, if you're afraid, you'll never get anywhere. But if you're fearless, we can teach you the technique. I actually think you've got a shot at this. I went to Mount Hood that year, and me training with a bunch of 12-year-olds was very humbling because they were all much better than me. Over the course of the 5 days, I changed my skis from, twin tips to a consumer race ski, and then I changed my 80 flex boots to like a 120 flex boot. And over the 5 days, my improvement was so incredible that Will Gregoric, who was my coach at the time, said that I also think you can do this. And so that's kind of how that whole thing started. The thing I love most about skiing is speed. I'm an absolute speed freak. And then after that first run, just kind of railing a few turns or just getting up to like 60, 70 miles an hour, I'm just like, this is awesome. I love it. I'm just so addicted to it. Learning something that's incredibly technical, that requires a combination of coordination, balance, motor neuron skills, and all of that stuff, and be able to read the terrain and feeling myself improve at it, that for me is also very addicting. I chose Revelstoke because it's one of the best mountains on the planet, in my opinion. A normal year, I think this place will get 40 feet of snow, and it's kind of hidden in this nook between Calgary and Vancouver, which keeps us away from the massive crowds of the mega resorts. And it's one of those mountains where you really have to earn the goods. There are only 2 chairs that service the top of the mountain, and so the majority of the good stuff requires a little bit of adventure and kind of hiking or a lot of traversing. So on the day that I qualified, the feeling of crossing the finish line, and that moment, I'm kind of like an emotionally chilled guy, very level-headed, very like muted with my emotions, both on the upside and the downside. And so the feeling of the final racer crossing the line and me doing some rough math in my head to be like, I've qualified, was actually just this huge weight off of my shoulders. The number one emotion was not elation, was actually relief. I dedicated 2 years of my life and 6 figures of cash to try to make this thing work. What's really interesting about competing against people that have been doing this for their entire lives is that you have absolutely zero chance of coming anywhere near them. I didn't have to be as good as them, but I could technically, feasibly qualify even just finishing back of the pack of most of my races. So there's an interesting kind of program set out by the International Ski Federation and the International Olympic Committee, which allows every nation to put forward one male and one female athlete at the Olympic Games, as long as they meet a minimum threshold of safety and competence. It means that I only had to be top 4,000 in the world. I basically had to get my skill level up to a really good 16-year-old. And that's something that I felt was, achievable. The feeling of taking a spot from another athlete is something I thought long and hard about. And the way that it works with the International Olympic Committee is kind of like dishing out of the quota, is it's kind of like this weird draft system where you have the best in the world are guaranteed a spot, no problem. And then you have the best in all of these kind of non-traditional ski nations are guaranteed a spot. And then you kind of have this gap in the middle where America can send its 7th best, and then another country qualifies over here in Ghana or something. And eventually you meet this thing where you get to the middle, but the priority is each country sending their first nation. So when I qualified, one nation lost their 9th best athlete, for example. I initially had this goal of just going to the Olympics because I thought that it was something complicated. I immediately received so much media coverage that made me understand that this story of me going to the Olympics is not just some guy following in the footsteps of the Jamaican bobsled team, but being a representative for people of color in an industry that doesn't really have much representation. I learned that this is a big problem in the sport, something that I hadn't really spent much time thinking about. And it turned this project into, let's get to the Olympics because it's a challenge, and if I achieve this thing, let's support the next generation, actually blow this up. By bringing more countries into skiing and having more countries interested in skiing and having more people of different backgrounds and different colors and different socioeconomic backgrounds understanding that skiing is for them, then a rising tide rises all ships. If there are now an extra 10 million people in the United States that say, hey, Benji went to the Olympics, my kid is part Jamaican, let's get him out there skiing, and they're buying equipment, and they're buying lift tickets, it actually promotes the sport. One of the benefits of sport is giving people, this thing to be passionate about, and having a goal to fight towards or to work towards is, for me at least, something that I find when I'm in my happiest place. So that's why I went down the rabbit hole on this whole ski thing. Learning something that's incredibly technical and incredibly complicated that requires a bit of mental capacity, but a lot of motor neuron skills, balance and coordination, and feeling myself improve and get better at that was just one of the most rewarding moments in my life. People en masse getting involved in sports, and especially team sports, and doing that, it just creates happier people. What were the next steps with like MBS helping BGOW with kind of like growth?
The thing with BGOW is that we don't serve an only Black audience. We serve a diverse racialized group. So we have places and spaces that we can connect with other folks to start launching chapters.
The inclusivity issue, and it's not a problem, but it's an issue with winter sports. If you didn't have parents that ski, you're less likely to be a skier. If you didn't have wealthy parents, so that you would mingle with other wealthy families who skied, you're less likely to be a skier. And if you didn't grow up in a part of the world that has immediate access to mountains, where even as a lower income kind of person, you might have found a way to get on the mountains, then almost certainly you're not going to be a skier if you don't have one of those three things.
It shows that there's 2,000 Black people who are on skis in winter sports where we're told that we don't belong, or that we're told that we don't do.
Likelihood of having parents, if you're a person of color who ski, next to zero. Likelihood of having parents who have a high disposable income, very low. I think in the United States it's $150,000 per household average income for Caucasian families compared to $30,000 for people, Black people in the States, which is an insane stat.
Beyond his Olympic accomplishments, Benjamin is dedicated to helping organizations on promoting winter sports participation among diverse communities.
Look, having 2,000 people on skis, on snow, is such a newsworthy event that it's great that we got the New York Times coverage, but there should be another title sponsor that comes in and, you know, that story can be replicated every year because there's going to be a sponsor that's going to throw 20 grand at capturing that and then marketing that afterwards.
As you said, Benji, I really want to focus on getting that social media outreach. I really need that for us to grow.
And I'll put my hand up to say that as you get started, you know, for the first year or so, if you need a couple of kind of names or figureheads on there that might help other people to come along, then I'd happily do that. And so stories like mine show that it's possible, and getting more people into the sport and more importantly, being successful at the sport, which I could never do, but I will help the next generation, the generation beyond that do, will slowly like turn the cruise ship and help more people of color come into the sport, I hope. I was just recently in Vermont, and while walking through the facility, I kind of glanced in the window at the gift shop and saw a long sleeve kind of like base layer which had this illustrations of two Black girls in ski wear. And just having people of color represented on clothing and showing that, oh, people do ski. And so that's the first step. And now we need to find some incredible skiers that can get there on the World Cup circuit and get some top 10 finishes in the World Cup and hopefully beyond that. When I started mentoring the next generation, I initially thought that there would just be more people like me that wanted to participate in the Winter Olympics. Henry!
How's it going? I'm good, buddy.
I would love you to try and get into an East Coast race.
I could certainly see if I could fit one in April.
I have been incredibly fortunate that out of the 10 athletes that I'm mentoring, 3 of them are ripping athletes that have skied their entire lives, that now attend 2 of the best ski racing academies on the East Coast, which means they're on snow 6 days a week, training 6 days a week, which means that they have as good a chance as any kid that's flying for the US ski team, but now they're going to bring that talent to the Jamaican ski team. And so for me, that's super exciting.
I'm really excited just to be part of the process, and also like think it's amazing that there would be competition for a Jamaican ski spot.
I literally had to figure out the whole system by myself. Now I have a playbook that not only I can hand over to these kids, but also I'm willing and able to connect people and to just do the work for them so that they can focus on being an athlete.
To the best of my knowledge, you are filming the entire Nordic Jamaican ski team.
Let's see what we got.
With more Jamaican alpine skiers on the horizon, Benjamin has shifted his focus towards getting more interest in Nordic skiing.
I started off with cross-country skiing because friends of mine here in Revelstoke were doing it. This would have been in 2019. And after going through the whole process of qualifying for the Olympics myself and understanding that process and hoping to share that knowledge with the next generation of Jamaican athletes, I'm pretty certain that cross-country will be the pathway to bring a lot more diversity into the winter sports. Something I'm super excited about is bringing Nordic skiers from the island to come and compete at the next Olympics. I believe there's a high level of transferable skill from just being a fantastic track and field athlete to putting on some roller skis, meaning they can train year-round at home, reducing costs, and then we can flick them onto snow when they become good enough to compete.
So, what do you think the future holds for Jamaican winter sports?
I think the future is bright. Absolutely, I believe we can be competitive. So success is bringing more people into the sport. Success is having more people watch the sport. I like to think about my success in this will be judged after 10 years, not next year, not the year after, not even at the 2026 Games, and that's where we go. Giving kids on that island the opportunity to represent their country and not have to try to be the next Usain Bolt or Shelley-Ann Fraser-Price, that's success for me. So yeah, success is having more inclusivity in the sport. Medals may or may not come, but that's okay.